Hi, my name is Chris Hinds, and I am the councilperson-elect for Denver City Council's District 10.
One of the new councilmen.
Yes, sir.
How do you really, coming into this, what did you want to do to represent Denver and your district?
Well, so I talked a lot about, in the campaign trail, I talked a lot about access. We all need access. We need access to housing, we need access to transportation, and we need access to representation. And so I talked a lot about all three of those. The first two things were what I wanted to do with the city, and for what it's worth, these are the top two issues facing the people in District 10, because we talked to a lot of people in District 10. And then the third was, we were going up against an incumbent running for re-election, and the third about representation is why should there be a change from the current elected official?
Give me a little background, tell me a little bit about your district, what it's like for those who aren't familiar with your district.
Sure, so the Denver City Council's District 10, the neighborhoods are Uptown, Capitol Hill, Golden Triangle, Cheeseman, Congress, Cherry Creek, Country Club, and Belcaro. So in many ways, it's a tale of two cities. It's a very vibrant district. It has the Denver Museum of Art. It has the Botanic Gardens. It has Cherry Creek Mall. It has Congress Park. It has Cheeseman Park. A lot of the things that people think of when they think of the city of Denver outside of downtown and the airport are in Denver City Council's District 10. So it's a very vibrant community. As I said, it's kind of a tale of two cities in that Cherry Creek Country Club and Belcaro are kind of one area of the district. It's an older, more mature population. It's a more affluent population. And then the rest of the district, certainly as you go north and west, it gets younger and younger. And so Capitol Hill is more than 60% millennial. And a lot of the people who live in Capitol Hill and Uptown have only lived there or in Colorado for just a year or two. So it's a really interesting district. It's a fun district. Obviously, I'm partial. I really like District 10, and I've lived on my block for more than a decade. But it's been great.
And despite having that, or even including that spectrum of the millennial to the more mature, as you put it, you also have a wide spectrum of economic areas in your district. Talk about kind of juggling that, how do you represent both of those?
Sure, so there was a private service called Chariot that ran briefly earlier this year, and I think that Chariot was a good example of the economic disparity in the district. So Chariot ran from Capitol Hill to Cherry Creek, and the start was, and for the most part, the start was in Capitol Hill, and the destination, the last stop, was Cherry Creek Mall. And the reason they picked that as the route is because the majority of the people who work in Cherry Creek Mall live in Capitol Hill. So again, a bit of the economic disparity. A fair number of the janitors who work downtown in the Central Business District also live in Cap Hill. And then on the Cherry Creek side, we have a lot of business owners. We have elected officials. We have federal elected officials who live, right in that neighborhood. And so there are people who really have come to expect response, and they're very engaged politically at all levels. It's a really interesting combination, and so how do you manage those two populations at the same time? Well, it's tough. I mean, but they leave all the easy things to city council, right? I mean, so obviously it's that's part of the reason why we are elected is to manage the conversation as it changes from one neighborhood to the next.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that I'm going to do is I want to have aids based on geography that will focus on different geographic regions. One of my aids will focus on Cherry Creek Country Club and Belcaro because the needs in those three neighborhoods are many ways different than the needs in the other areas of the district, and the population, for the district really is kind of defined by the borders of there versus the rest of the district. And so the second aid would then focus on Cheeseman, Congress, Uptown, Cap Hill, and Golden Triangle, because that population is a little more, it's a different kind of population. So we certainly with City Council, we're focused on constituent services. We want to make sure that we serve the people who elected us and frankly serve the people who voted for the other guy too. And it's important to represent the entire district, but I think that that's one way that we can make sure that people are heard and that we provide the right amount of attention and focus for the different kinds of needs for the district.
It's no mystery that Colorado and Denver have gone through some massive changes, especially within the last decade. You've been in public service, or at least volunteer service, for some time now. So you've had some time to kind of look at what you can do here now that you have, just a little bit of power. Where do you see the future of your district?
So thank you for recognizing that. I guess the final straw, the reason why I announced for City Council is because in May of 2018, Governor Hickenlooper signed the Chris Hinds Act into law, and I was a citizen lobbyist. I was not paid to go to the state legislature, but when the legislators at the state level, they actually changed the title of the bill to the Chris Hinds Act. So if you go back and look, they actually had to take a vote, which is kind of crazy that they're starting to name stuff after me. But I figured, if they're going to name laws after me as a private citizen, imagine what I could do as an elected official. And you're right, the city has changed quite a lot, and the state, for that matter. In the last decade, since the 2008 recession, I would say even just in the last, I'd say since 2014, the city has really changed a lot. And maybe more prescient, since the 2015 election, Denver City Council's District 10 looks a lot different in 2019 than it did in 2015. There was a lot of population growth in the district in all the neighborhoods except Cherry Creek Country Club and Belcaro. And we had an election at the federal level, so our president has activated a lot of people who haven't historically participated in the political process, and people have realized that it is important to be politically engaged at all levels. And so I think that's part of the reason why I did win the election. I think that's also part of the reason, that I think more people will hold me accountable now too. And I think that's good. I think it's important for us to have a conversation between the people and government. And I'm really excited to have that conversation.
So that kind of segues right into my next question is, we always use this, the bellwether is the first 100 days. So fast forward here, you're 100 days into your term. What do you hope to look back on those 100 days and say, we got that done?
Well, I hope to find the restroom. So hopefully we'll have that in the first 100 days. I think that we need to make sure that development, I think that people are, in District 10 at least, are reasonably understanding that Denver is a growing city. As you say, we're growing. I think that it's important that we have development that works for the city, and a lot of people feel that it's happening to the city. So one of the things that I want to do, probably the biggest thing that I want to accomplish in the first 100 days is to, District 10 is very close to the urban core. It's the most densely packed district. There's a lot of development in District 10. If you go to Golden Triangle right now, it's some would say it's a war zone. There's so much construction. So I've already talked with the mayor, and I've already talked with various organizations who work with developers and construction companies. In the first 100 days, I want to reach out to all of them and say, we need to make sure that as we're growing for Denver's future, we're taking care of the people here today, and people should have the right and the ability to walk around their own block and walk around their own neighborhood and walk their dog and not worry about or not have to deal with sidewalk closures, or at least have some sort of pedestrian access, and not worry about construction equipment that's just littered all over our neighborhoods. And I think that that's one way to balance growth for tomorrow with the people who live here today and have lived here for decades.
My last question that's written down, and District 10 is probably the easiest question or the hardest question for you to answer regarding this, because you have to balance the affluent with the less affluent, the older with the younger. How important is collaboration in your community, in your district, but also working with the other council members?
Yeah, so I guess we could talk about the election, the May 7th and June 4th election briefly, because certainly there are a lot of different kinds of collaboration. There's collaboration amongst neighbors and a district city council person. There's also collaboration amongst the 13 members of city council, and there's collaboration between the executive and legislative branches. So just talking about the collaboration between the executive and legislative branches, I look forward to working with the mayor, and of course I'd work with whoever's elected, but that obviously, this is in many ways a mayor's town. It's a city where it's a strong mayor form of government, and so I'm looking forward to working with the mayor, and like I said, I've already talked with him briefly, and look forward to continue to talking with him. This election, we had 3 people running for re-election who are not returning, and I'm replacing one of those people who ran for re-election and did not prevail. And so in many ways, I see this as a potential opportunity to make sure that we have 3 fully effective branches of government in the city of Denver. Obviously, we have the judicial branch, we have the mayor, which is the executive branch, and some people historically have been concerned in the recent past that the legislative branch wasn't an effective check and balance as our American democracy asks us to have, or requires us to have through the Constitution. And so I look also, just as I look forward to working with the mayor, I also look forward to working with my 12 colleagues on council to see how we can collaborate. And we have 13 votes, but we have one voice at the end of the day. And our voice is, yes, we're okay with the mayor, or yes, we think that the mayor is perhaps going through a process that we don't necessarily agree with. So there's the mayor, there's working with members of council, and working with the neighborhood. And you said this is your last scripted question. I agree with you. This is an important conversation, because we have people who want to encase the city in amber. And I've lived in my neighborhood for 60 years, and my house is 100 years old, and I am frustrated because I don't have parking or whatever. Like, we have to make sure that we grow as a city. The state demographer is estimating that we'll have an additional 200,000 people move to the city of Denver by 2040, and we can't grow our streets anymore, particularly in District 10. They can't get widened anymore just because of the dense urban neighborhood. And we have to recognize that the buildings, the homes that are 100, 120 years old, like, the traffic that was going in front of those buildings were horse-drawn carriages. And so we have to balance making sure that we have a city that we recognize and that we celebrate its history. We also have to embrace change in a measured, meaningful way. And so that's part of the conversation, that's part of the balance. And I guess that's why they elect me to make the really tough decisions, is because obviously it is a tough decision. We want to make sure that that we don't just go nuts with change. I think that's what the voters said on May 7th and June 4th in the runoff.
With that said, and this will be my last question, it sounds like in Colorado, on the state level and the local level, has a very strong tradition of collaboration. Sometimes a little less so than others, and as you alluded to, maybe not so much in recent times. But is that a tradition that you embrace and that you want to push forward?
The collaboration between the local and state level?
Just collaboration, yeah. Collaborating in the laws.
Yeah.
development, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you mentioned that, it is the mayor's city, but it's not either or. There has to be a collaboration.
Yeah, and actually, frankly, I think there should be more collaboration between the city and state. I think that's, and if I'm not fully going down the path of your question, then redirect me in a second.
Well, but mostly just on the city level.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not you saying no, no, no to the mayor as much as it is, how can we find common ground?
Yeah, yes, I agree. And I think that the example of all the sidewalk closures, particularly around construction, I think that is a way to collaborate. And that's a way for us to continue to have development, but again, make it reasonable for the people who live here today to enjoy their own city. There's an application for a noise variance for 3 years for the I-70 project. Do we really need to grant a 3-year extension? I mean, I think that we should collaborate, and perhaps there is a reason why we should have nighttime noise variances, but to give a blank check for the entirety of the project, I think that's maybe a little much. And that's part of the collaboration. We're not giving everything, we're not reserving everything. And so
that's how things get done.
Yeah, exactly.